I'd like to call to order this Committee of the Whole meeting of the Town of Saugeen Shores and extend a welcome to everyone in the chambers this evening. And the first order of business is the declaration of pecuniary interest, and I'll remind every member of their responsibility to do so if you have one. If there's none, then this evening we have 3 deputations, and the first one is David Schmellet, and he's here about Centennial Pool. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors. I know we're on a tight schedule, so I'll keep my watch so I can see it. I'd like to thank the pool working group and the staff for their work to prepare the report that they submitted on June 22nd. I'm saying we tonight, but we left the troops at home. We didn't feel the need to pack the chambers tonight. But I have letters of support and some comments for you instead. We're here tonight to voice our support of the staff recommendations of the report, and we'd like to commend the Committee of the Whole for the unanimous acceptance of the complete report. I know this is tough to believe, but I only have one request for you tonight. But I'll get to that later. There was concern in the past that I was speaking on behalf of a very limited group. So in response, our group went out to the community and contacted several other groups to ask if they supported Council's efforts. I have collected some of those letters and comments here tonight for you. Not all groups were comfortable speaking on behalf of their memberships without having the opportunity to reach out to the membership, and with limited time instead offered their personal support or just the support of their board of directors. Some groups had their entire membership sign the letter, and I've got some comments for you. We did hear from SRA, Beachers, I know that's a given, Southampton and Port Elgin BIA, Chamber of Commerce, Tourism, Saugeen Shores BMX, church groups, martial arts groups, local custom home builders. And in the past, you've seen we've had tenants in the council here from the Scouts, Triathletes, Aquafit, Breakers, Saugeen Shores Life Saving Club. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and even suggest that the businesses that sponsor the sponsored swims are also supportive. This is going to be a legacy project. I think this is pretty exciting. We'll serve our children for a long time to come. And from the comments that I've received, we'll support, and from the support we've received in the community, this is going to be good. I just wanted to read some of the comments that I got. Someone wants a whirlpool. Don't let the word while be a reason to put off forever what should be done now. So important to use as we age. Been too long in the planning. How many more studies? If we don't move forward with this now, our town will be moving backwards. A new facility is a no-brainer. Maintain seniors' health. Support the community needs. Thank you for what you've been doing to keep the pool functioning. Been in the water. It's been so important to me and to our physical well-being and to our health. I've been coming to Aquafit for over 20 years. This is an important exercise facility for so many people who have artificial hips and knees. I love this one. Especially important for seniors. Been doing this Aquafit class for over 30 years. We appreciate the courage of council to move this project forward and recognize that not everyone will support it. However, I only saw 2 letters and only had one person make any comment to me about questioning the timing. But based on the feedback I have received, the vast majority of the people support this project and want to learn more. Unfortunately, there are more questions than answers now. And those that disagree, at first I ask you to open your minds. Think about all the good things that it's going to do and get the facts before you question it. Keep in mind that access to a recreational facility is vital to a healthy society. We don't have all the answers now, but I trust council, and we will soon. But it's a project that I know will not move forward until we have a solid business case that is made and with the funding properly secured. Many have asked me, what's the next step? We don't want this issue to sit for another year waiting for budgets and new committees. Mr. Mayor, this brings me to my one request. Mr. Mayor, is it possible now to direct the Recreation and Active Transportation Committee to develop the terms of reference for a recreational master plan this summer? Can we submit it to the consultants, obtain quotes, and either obtain pre-budget approval or have a solid number for the 2016 budget so that we can have a recreation master plan completed this time next year. We can do this now with no financial impact and prepare us now for the next step. I promised to keep it short, and I did.
Thank you, David. Questions or comments from the committee? Councillor Mike Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, David, and thanks again for all the work you've done and a group of volunteers who are working on this. I know you've put a lot of time and hours into this this whole process, so I for one certainly appreciate all you've done. And speaking on behalf of the pool community. Your one suggestion at the end I picked up on, and that is your comment about the writing of a recreation master plan terms of reference. And as you can appreciate, our budget discussions are November, December when capital is discussed, and budget really isn't approved till next March generally. I, for one, think that rather than wait for the budget period to happen in November, December and approval next March with a recreation master plan, I, for one, think that'd be a tremendous idea for our staff to be directed to, through the Recreation Active Transportation Committee, to come up with terms of reference in your first 1 or 2 or 3 meetings in the summer and fall, and then proceed to go out and obtain some pricing after council's taken a look at the terms of reference, is to go for pricing, to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6 consultants around the province of Ontario, and be ready to go. And so that when we get to our budget discussions in November, December, we haven't lost 6 months, or next spring 9 months. Whether or not the recreation master plan funding will be approved, we don't know that yet until this next January, February, March. But I for one would support your suggestion, David, and I'd be interested in hearing how other councillors are feeling about it. But to move forward, Mr. Mayor, with drafting up terms of reference, gaining some pricing, so we're ready to go with our budget process in December. We don't lose that 6-9 months.
Just as a point of clarification, Mike, and I think it's my understanding that when we struck the committee, that was the mandate of the committee to come up with it. So I don't think we need anything new to tell them to do, come up with the terms of reference. I think that was one of the tasks that we asked the committee to do. So I suspect that's the answer to your first question is accomplished. In fact, there's 2 questions here, and the second was pre-budget approval, and I think Mike's talked to that, and then we'll see, I guess, when we get to as the committee works unfolds. Councillor Manoj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is to you and to staff. Really is to ask if there's a shortcut to be had. What would it look like? And if we know that we've already stated to the public, this project, this aquatic facility project, is not going forward without grant funding, how do we shortcut our part of the process so that we're ready when and if that funding arrives?
Well, again, I think we'll leave that with the terms of reference. I mean, I'm really not sure what your question is. How do we shortcut the process? I think we should play the process out and allow the committee to do its work, first of all. I think we've got a path forward about that. Certainly was on some financing, or what we agreed to, how the financial situation, what the town's commitment was in debt financing, what we were expecting in fundraising, and then what we're expecting in grant partners, I will say, from other senior levels of government. But I mean, if you want to start, I say, if you think we can make it go any faster, I would say one of the first things is start fundraising, because the big question will come down to this table is how much appetite you have for spending money. And when we get to budget, it's always about priorities. We get priorities and requests from not only David Smelt, many people for many other things. So I mean, I'm just trying to put it into perspective. We'll get all kinds of requests, David. And so I mean, if you want to hurry it along, fundraise a couple $1 million or more. I don't know what the number will be, and I just throw that number out there. But thank
you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I would echo everything that was said by the previous 2 councillors, and also I'm really happy to hear that there is so much community support other than just the groups that get up and speak in front of us. And just as a way of a bit of a plug, I think we just got the new Dryatron installed and the new upgrades to the pool, and that this is the week that we're having the week-long September. But isn't there a celebration on Wednesday? There's a 40th
anniversary celebration, Dryatron installation.
Oh, I see. Okay, but the 40th, okay, and we'll plug the 40th celebration of the existing aquatics facility, which is getting a new breath of life.
Yes.
Thanks to the hard work of the staff, led by Mr. Phil Eagleson, who's not here tonight, but by all the staff in Parks and Rec and everybody involved. Thanks, Jane. And so, yes, we encourage increased use, and we would like to see increased use of the existing facility, which will only prove that our community is really interested in having an aquatic facility, new and improved, however that may take shape.
Thanks very much. Thanks, David. And I would have a suggestion for you as this committee starts to do its work this summer. By all means, participate all you can, and encourage anybody the people that you've talked to participate and make their participate. And we would certainly like to hear from them, their views and their support. Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Our next deputation is Greg Fryer. He's the Executive Director, and John McLaughlin. He's the Partnership Coordinator from Habitat for Humanity, and they're here for an update. Welcome, Greg and John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to bring a delegation tonight to you. We want to bring an update on what we're doing at Habitat, as well as talk about our model and how we work, because often as we talk with councils that they don't fully understand how we work, and there are many questions, and so we're here tonight to answer any questions that you may have. We all know that the need for affordable housing is great in our community. The most recent report from the county indicated that there are 272 applicants on the waiting list for affordable housing in the county. That's up 97 families from the previous year, 2013. We know that many of those live here in the community of Saugeen Shores. And beyond that, at Habitat, we currently have 60 applications on file of families who are eager to partner with us for us to build a house with them that's affordable for them to live in. Beyond that, the Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation's definition of a core housing need would probably expand the number of families. And their definition is three items: adequacy, is it safe and healthy? Is their home currently suitable? Is it large enough for the family? And lastly, is it affordable? And if we use that definition, probably the need is much greater than what the numbers from the county indicate. And so the need is great, and we are here to try and address that need and to reduce the core housing need for affordable housing. And we believe our model is very unique and very helpful for families, and not, first of all, in providing an affordable home right off the bat. So we with our families, with communities, with volunteers, donors and sponsors, we build houses that are affordable. We sell the houses at fair market value to our families, and then we hold the mortgage. It's a zero interest mortgage with a zero down payment, and that makes it affordable for families. And then they make a payment back to Habitat. 25% of their income is used as the principal payment and the payment for property taxes. And this makes it affordable for families. And as well, the families going forward into the future are building an asset that they can capitalize on down the road as their property increases in value. And to ensure that families aren't out to make a quick dollar, we have a buyback policy where families in the first 5 years of owning the house do not get any of the equity. At year 6, they get 10%, year 7, 20%, and so on up to year 15 years. Then they'll are eligible for the entire 100% of any equity gain in their house. So that prevents a quick sale, a family from gaining in a very high real estate market, gaining immediately and then leaving the house. There are further benefits benefits, in that as families move, oftentimes our families that we select are currently in subsidized rental accommodation. We're taking them out of that situation, and now they become a homeowner, and now they're making property tax payments, and that's contributing to the community. So instead of relying on the community for support, they're now contributing to the community, and we believe that's a win-win for both the community and for our families. Further, CMHC has done studies of Habitat families who have lived in homes built by Habitat for a number of years, and have found that there are several benefits. For instance, children's confidence levels rise. 89% of the families that were surveyed said that their life is much healthier and happier. There's stability in their lives, and the level of stress has been lowered because now they're in an affordable house in which they own, and which, again, they're building an asset for the future. And that relieves all kinds of stress. And now they're able to focus on higher goals in their lives. So it's a very much a win-win for, again, the families and for our communities. Further, our model is sustainable in that not only do we hold the mortgages and those payments are coming back to Habitat, those payments this year alone that we're collecting will provide the cost to build one house, which we're currently building in Tobermory. And further, you're aware of our restores, and the one we just opened here in Port Elgin last year. Our 3 restores, the net income from the stores that is generated pays 100% of all of our administrative costs. So every dollar donated to Habitat goes directly into our home building program. It doesn't cover any administration costs. And as well, our restores generate enough income to also enable us to put money directly into our home building program. So that makes our model very sustainable going forward, and we're looking at expanding our restore operation further, and we have looking down the road at opening a 4th store, possibly in the Kincardine area, and to expand that as a big part of our means of raising money for our home building operation. John's going to talk further about our model, and then talk about some of our plans we have for the future.
I look around the room, I see a few familiar faces. Some of them have had hard hats on when they worked at the site, and I thank you for your support. To build Habitat homes, we basically need 5 things. We need families that qualify, that need decent, affordable homes. And we know from experience, as many of you know, we've built now 3 homes in this area, all on the same street, and we had to turn families away. So we know there's families that are in need. In this area, especially with the influx of dollars from Bruce Power, it makes houses a little bit more expensive, so a little bit less affordable for many people that don't work at Bruce Power. So we have a long list of people, families that need decent, affordable homes. We need land. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Another thing we need is people, volunteer support. Well, one of the things we really like about this area is we've had a lot of support, both from people in the community, a lot of people coming out on a regular basis to volunteer in this area. So we're very happy with the people's support and would like to capitalize on that a little bit. Building materials, donated products. We have arranged with many national suppliers to donate products, so all we have to do is start a project and they're in line. One of those is Whirlpool, gives us a fridge and stove for every house of Habitat across Canada. Mitten Vinyl will supply vinyl for every house that we build. CGC will supply drywall for everybody. Dow Chemical will supply rigid foam insulation, and the other company supplies, Owens Corning supplies pink insulation for all our houses. Dulux Paint is already committed to supply paint for any house we build. So we have national suppliers lined up and ready to go. All we need to do is start. Money, that's a big project, and we're constantly trying to raise money from various sources. But once we get a project, we can focus on that project, focus on that area, and it's a lot easier to raise money when you have a focus. So as you know, we've built 3 houses here. We want to do another one, maybe another 2, maybe another 3, maybe another 4, because we think it's a great area to build. And so what I'm here to ask council to consider is the property that is now over here on Wellington Street where our sea cans are sitting. They'll be moved shortly. But we'd love to build right there, right next to the semi-detached homes we built last year. And I'm sure you've driven by those. Not bad-looking houses. And we'd like to do another project just like that. And so we'd like you to consider, if you would, donating that land or coming up with some kind of a way to make it financially feasible for us that we could, in fact, start another project in this area. We love working with the staff here. It worked out well, and we want to do it again. Any questions?
Thanks very much, Greg. And John, questions for none? Councillor Minaj.
I hear the good news story, and I'm curious that you're here in 2014. You leave to go to Tobermory, and it's a beautiful spot up there, and then you're back here in 2016. That's your plan.
Could be 2016 or 2017, depending on finances, yeah.
I just wondered, you're the only people in business for Habitat for Humanity, so the rest of the Grey Bruce area, how did it function over the past years, and how will it function going forward?
Okay, so what has happened in the past is we have been building one house, take 2 or 3 years off, build another house, take 2 or 3 years off. We've got more aggressive. In 2012 and 2013, we built 8 houses in Hanover. So we kind of used that market up pretty well from families. Okay, we'll go back there, probably in the Walkerton area, which we're finding there's a great need there. But we work with the housing people from the county, and they've identified certain areas as areas of need. So that's where we focus. They've identified Port Elgin, Saugeen Shores as one of those areas of need. Walkerton is another one.
John, thanks for your presentation. And the only question I had really was in terms of our involvement in Saugeen Shores with those 3 lots across the way, and doing our part in Grey Bruce counties to help the cause, which is a fabulous cause, by the way. And I'm just wondering if you could provide this council with information pertaining to how we fare in Saugeen Shores as compared to other municipalities in terms of providing land, whether it's purchased or partial purchase or a negotiated agreement, fair market value, whatever the cost is. But could you at some point provide for this council information pertaining to, you talked about Tobermory, talked about Hanover, talked about Walkerton, where we stand in that cluster in terms of what we've done in the last, say, 10 years. Can you go back that far?
Yes.
Just to give us an idea how we stack up in assisting the cause, which is a wonderful cause. But I just, for me as a councillor, because there's a request in here to transfer land, and so for me as a councillor, I'd like to know, how we're doing, I guess, as compared to other municipalities, and what other municipalities have done over the last 10 years. Could that information be provided?
Yep.
We have that information.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And we'll address that through to the mayor.
You can direct it to the clerk, or just send it to the mayor, and I'll get it to the clerk, sure.
Okay.
And we'll circulate that. Yep.
Great.
I think along with that, anyway, any other questions, comments? None? First of all, thanks very much for what you do. The numbers that you mentioned early, Greg, we see those monthly at Bruce County Housing, those waiting lists, and I know that they're troubling for it to think that there's a number of people in Bruce County that are struggling to find affordable housing. And I do know that this area along the lake shore is one of the highest, that the demand is there. Bruce County Housing has developed a 10-year plan for a housing strategy along with homelessness to try and address that. Habitat for Humanity is just one of those good things that help address those issues. They set a target of 450 affordable units in the next 10 years. And that will count as Habitat adds or the private sector adds or the county adds. So I completely admire the work you people do. There is a huge need in our community that we don't often see. And we hear lots of other things, but the people that are in need, we don't often see them. In any case, I appreciate that. Just one other thing. I think if you're going to get that information, Mike, I think it'll be worthwhile. And I would suggest that we go back to staff and come back with some ideas about property that we have. But along with that, we've made donations for a number of other causes also. Women's second stage housing, the Wellington Shores. And I think we need to have that all in a perspective. So I think the clerk can probably, or staff can come back with a recommendation of what we have, and we can make a selection and see where we go from there. Okay? Thanks very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
The next deputation is Tony Sheard. He's director of the local campaign chair of Saugeen Memorial Hospital Foundation. I think he has Duncan McCollum with him. But Duncan's well familiar with this room, I can assure you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors, for allowing us the opportunity to give you an update on the hospital campaign. Over 3 years ago, the 5 foundations that support the Grey Bruce Health Services embarked on a major $11.4 million fundraising campaign to firstly improve cancer care for patients across Grey Bruce, build an enlarged ER and laboratory in Southampton, and upgrade services at all 6 Grey Bruce Health Service hospitals. The campaign was launched publicly in May of last year. The local goal of the campaign is to raise $2.9 million in Saugeen Shores, $1.8 million towards the new ER and lab project, $300,000 towards an integrated cardiac care system and other site improvements, and the balance of around $800,000 will be put towards our share of the new cancer care facilities in Owen Sound for the benefit of Saugeen Shores patients. This facility will comprise a new oncology suite on the 5th floor with a 40% increase in capacity, a new CT scanner and a new radiological intervention suite. I am pleased to confirm that the interventional suite was commissioned in January of this year and the new CT scanner went into service last week. Site work on the new oncology suite commenced on June the 22nd and should be ready within 6 months. Locally, we are very excited that the long-awaited new emergency room and lab will soon start construction. It is over 40 years since the last major renovation at the Southampton site. The new facility will be 3 times the size and provide enhanced facilities including dedicated waiting rooms, triage area, private treatment rooms and a special decontam suite. I had the opportunity to meet a few weeks ago with the project manager and the architect, and they're now in the final stages of phasing the project so as to minimise the inconvenience to patients while the new construction activity takes place. It is anticipated that tenders will be issued in late summer to allow the contract to be awarded in late 2015, with an on-site start date of spring 2016. We are greatly encouraged by the generosity of so many people and organisations in support of the campaign. And specifically this campaign, I would like to pay tribute to the town of Saugeen Shores for committing a lead pledge of $200,000 at the outset of the campaign. This leadership by the town is greatly appreciated, and this pledge helped set the tone for a very successful campaign. Thanks to the hard work of many volunteers and the generosity of major donors, service clubs, corporations and municipalities, we are well on the way to our target. Currently, the overall campaign has less than $1 million to go, and we in Saugeen Shores are very close to reaching our target. But we need one final push to get us over the top. During the coming weeks, we'll be focusing on crushing cancer and building our fund ready for the new ER through an integrated newspaper and radio advertising campaign seeking some final donations. The government does not fund most capital equipment, and therefore, as new technologies evolve, as the population ages, as doctors and patients' expectations for the best possible care rise, the need for funding will continue to grow. So while we are close to reaching a major milestone, the journey to fund our hospital capital needs and keep healthcare close to home will continue for years to come. At this point, I would like to publicly acknowledge and thank Erin Zorzi, who recently stepped down as chair of the foundation after loyally serving the foundation for the past 6 years. I would like to take the opportunity to introduce John Ebel, who's at the back of the room, who's now taken on the the chair of the foundation, and Sally Kitson, who's also in the room tonight, who is our new executive director. And it would be remiss of me if I did not thank the many people who have supported me through the campaign, including my wife Sylvia, who put up with me being at endless meetings and functions and hot desking on our computer so I could write speeches or whatever I had to prepare. And I would specifically like to thank 2 hard-working community members who volunteered and became key committee members to our campaign team. They are June Van Bassler, who is not with us this evening, but Duncan McCallum is. And and without their tireless efforts, the campaign would not be so close. If any of you around the table and in the room tonight have not made a personal pledge, we were delighted to receive one from you this evening. And we have some packs of information which we'll hand out before we go. If you have made a pledge, and I don't want to embarrass anybody by saying they have made a pledge, please take the document and pass it on to some of your friends. And finally, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to update the Council on the status of the hospital campaign. And I have a picture of what the new look like, I think, somewhere. Oh, there you go. Will be built on the lawn at the front of the hospital on the corner of Grey Street and High Street. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you, Tony. Questions for Tony? Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I should be trying to use the future procedural bylaw here and only ask one question. So I'll do my best. The scanner that you talk about, maybe I need to see how my brain's doing, because I thought for sure that we talked about 10% of a $10 million project, and that Saugeen Shores commitment would originally be $1 million. Now I'm hearing you say today that it's $1.8 million for the ER portion. So and then you're talking about it being really close. So I guess at some point I'd like to know what close is and why we're at $1.8 million.
Right. If we step back, the overall campaign for the region is 11.4. Our share in Saugeen Shores is 2.9. The ER portion is 10% of the build cost. The build cost is estimated at 10 million. So we're on the hook because the provincial government will fund 90% for 1 million. But that brings you a shell of a building. You have then to equip it. The government do not put any equipment in it. So we need another $800,000 to put equipment in it. So that's the 1.8. And then the difference is effectively what we have funded. Well, there's 300,000 going into other upgrades in Southampton, because if we put a new wing on, we have to make the rest of it look a bit better too, and improve it, bring it up to another standard. So there's 300,000 going into the rest of the building, and then there's 800,000 going towards our share of the new oncology suite, the CT scanner, and the radiological intervention suite. Does that help you?
So the other part, and I know I was trying to be careful, was, so how close is close?
This close. This close. I can tell you in confidence, because I know nobody will tell you any outside this room, we're about 150,000 short locally. Globally, as far as the campaign is concerned, in terms of the 11.4, we're just around about $1 million short.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Tony, for coming here tonight, and thank you, Jonah and Duncan and everybody who came here tonight. Can I just want to say thank God for you people, because the concept that the government will pay 90% and they'll leave you with a shell of a building. I mean, if anybody else in the entire world, in any level of government, if we built this building and we left it and we said, oh, we're going to build a shell and you guys will have to figure out how to put ice in it and how to put a dehumidifier in it. And I mean, it's ridiculous, right? It's insane. And it's only because of people like you and the people in this room who you brought with you that we get to have this facility, we get the equipment in it, and we get to keep it in Saugeen Shores. It's fantastic, frankly, that we have people like you guys doing this work, and that we have the people who are willing to donate the money and support your cause, the cause, not your cause, our cause, the cause of the entire community, to keep healthcare local. And if it wasn't for the local grassroots support that makes that happen, we'd all be driving to Owen Sound or possibly to London or possibly to Toronto or wherever else. It just shows, to make great things happen, you need to have people like you on the ground doing that kind of work, whether it's healthcare or many other things in our community. So I just wanted to say that and let you know how much I appreciate your work. And I really look forward to seeing you get that last $150,000 and seeing the shovels in the ground on this thing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No further comments? Then, again, thank you very much, Tony. I think the Deputy Mayor said it very well. Thank you for what you do for our community and our hospital. I can hardly say enough. And I know it's not an easy task, but I know this community has been very supportive in the past, and I'm sure will in the future, and I'm sure we'll meet our goal.
Yeah.
And by all means...
I can only do what I do, and my colleagues can only do what they do with the generosity of the people of Saugeen Shores. So we have to thank them too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I think there's pledge sheets that by all means, Sally, get them around here. Thanks. So, our next item on the agenda is a general government staff report. It has to do with the procedural bylaw, and our clerk, Linda White, is going to present a little bit of a report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As per the direction from the previous Committee of Whole meeting, the Striking Committee reviewed the staff report dated June the 22nd regarding the suggested changes to the draft procedural bylaw. The suggestions provided in the staff report are summarized within this report, and those suggestions marked with an asterisk have been incorporated into the revised procedural bylaw attached to this report. So I'm going to not go through everything, but I'll again reiterate that those that have been identified with an asterisk have been incorporated, and those that have not, I'll leave it for discussion.
Thank you, Linda. I think, there it is. There's a recommendation there. I guess I'll read the recommendation, and then we can take some discussion or amendments. The Council consider passing the attached procedural bylaw. All in favor? Hooray.
I wanted to speak to a couple of items, and there were two requests I had placed into the procedure bylaw. Neither of them made it into the bylaw, and I wanted to present them this evening for council's consideration. And one is a 7 o'clock start time, and I know that I'm sure there are councillors who feel that we're a new council, and some of our councils are very late, and some I'm sure feel that those council meetings are going to get shorter, and maybe so. But I just think that starting at 7 o'clock would make good sense from a community standpoint. I take note of the town of Kincardine is a 5 o'clock start time, and I look at Hanover as a 7 o'clock start time. Our Bruce County Council meetings are 10 o'clock on Thursday mornings, and around the province, you can go on and on and on with council meeting start times. I've talked to a fair number of people in the community who said, "Can you please start your meetings earlier? We like to, we come to council with delegations from time to time, and stay for some of the business, and the meetings are late, and I understand the meetings may get shorter. I get that, and but I think even if the meetings do get shorter and we finish at, instead of 11:45 and 11:30 and 11:45, say we finish at 10 o'clock at night, then we get out here at 9:30, and I think it'd be good from we've got media that sit here council meeting after council meeting, and I'm sure they'd appreciate getting out a half an hour earlier. We've got our staff. There's staff that stay here from 4:30 through to 7:30 waiting for the council meeting to start, and I think there'd be some appreciation for staff to be able to depart a half an hour earlier, and I think those people on that cold winter night when you know, when we've got meetings finishing up at, you know, 10:30 and driving home on a stormy night, it'd be nice to get out of here at 10 o'clock. So I think that a 7 o'clock meeting start time makes a lot of sense in my view, and I'm asking for council to consider that tonight. I'm not suggesting it be put in the procedural bylaw, Mr. Mayor, but I'm suggesting that it become a policy that we could try on a 1-year trial basis. And I have a motion, if I could present to you, Mr. Mayor. I have a mover and a second myself, and a second by Dave Matt, Councillor Matt, but if I could present this to you. Pardon me? I just handed it to you, and it's the only one I have.
Okay, so that's one item, and I think I suspect we're going to have some more, so I think I'll keep this an advisement, and we'll deal with it. You had one other item that you wanted to speak to, Mike.
I do, Mr. Mayor. And my second motion relates to open forum, and, you know, whereas my meeting is calling to start at 7 o'clock, I suppose now we'd be going at 6:45, but I still think it's workable, and I think an open forum. I had a chat with Councillor Grace, who's not here this evening. She was prepared to present this motion. I was going to second it, but she was unable to attend this evening. But she feels pretty strongly, you know, about an open forum. There was discussion during the fall election campaign about public engagement, and I for one, going door to door and through the election campaign, heard that we need to be perhaps a little more open in terms of public engagement, where the public could come in at whether it be 15 minutes before a meeting, and they'd be given 2 to 3 minutes to speak on a topic of their choice, and there have to be some logistics, some framework set around that, so that the meetings don't get out of hand or unwieldy. I'm sure through staff's, you know, I mean, we have a very professional staff. They're able to put together some logistics how that may work and bring it to council for the consideration. So Mr. Mayor, I have a motion.
That's the one I have here.
I know, I gave you the wrong one. I gave you the wrong one. But I give you the right one. But this one is to
we'll get
consider.
To it.
I'll bring this to it.
I think this would be an amendment to, this is really what we're going to say is an amendment to the original recommendation. That's the way to deal with this. So, any other comments? You go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, are we speaking?
Okay, let's deal with the one. I know this one is one I want to speak to, is the open forum, and to deal with this. And I'll read you what this is. The staff be directed to report back to council with the logistical information pertaining to the offering of a 15-minute open forum prior to each committee of the whole meeting on a 1-year trial basis. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would not support that. I'm certainly very much in favor of encouraging more participation, but I don't think that that's a good way to do it. I think that it's would set a very difficult situation, and in 2 minutes, I think someone would be better served by taking the time to type out something, send it in, and then it gets circulated to all of us. So they would have much more than 2 minutes worth of our time. I think it sets in motion a situation where there'll be, perhaps comments from the audience, let them talk, and very quickly it'll be more than 15 minutes. And also, there could potentially be, it's first come, first served, same people all the time. I was much more supportive of the idea of us having 2 special meetings this year. The special meetings would set the wheels in motion for a complete open forum over a period of a couple of hours. People could have a little bit longer to speak. They could be timed to hit the right time for consideration for budget comments, and then, sort of an after the budget catch up. And it would give us a chance to hear a lot more people. have a nice session where, Southampton Town Hall, perhaps upstairs at the Plex. A lot of people could participate, and I think it would give us a chance to have people and us get introduced to the idea of having people speak. I don't think it serves anybody's purpose right at the moment to say we're going to put something out which gives somebody 2 minutes to speak. I've probably, in just what I've just said, spoke for 2 minutes. I really don't think it gives anybody a chance to say anything. A better solution is for them to put it in writing, and it'll get circulated to us. I would rather that we try the other special meeting idea and see what kind of a reaction we get to that, and we would get, I think, information at a timely time to fit into the budget process. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
As you know, I support this concept, and the reason I support it, and the reason I think it's an important thing to do is because there's a hole in our process right now in terms of the opportunity people have to comment on things before council. The meeting twice a year gives people an opportunity to talk about things that are on their minds at a particular time, yes, but it does not solve the problem in our procedures where people cannot comment on items that appear on committee of the whole in real time. So an item gets placed on committee of the whole on Thursday afternoon. That agenda comes out at the same moment as the deadline for submissions for delegations ends. So it is not possible for members of the public to comment on anything before committee of the whole, and that's well and good in the system if committee of the whole approves an item for consideration at council. Then they have 2 weeks, and they can come back and talk about it before council considers it, and that's fine. If, on the other hand, committee of the whole defeats an item, there is no opportunity for public input. It disappears. And that's a problem. I think that's a hole in our procedures. The public does not have a fulsome opportunity to speak on an issue that isn't supported by the committee of the whole. And an open forum gives that opportunity. Through personal experience, I can say that I don't believe it will descend into chaos. I've dealt with an open forum on a very difficult, contentious issue, and it was always treated respectfully when it was used, and it wasn't used very often, frankly. But when it was used, it was treated very respectfully, and people were made aware up front of what the requirements were in terms of time constraints, and they respected those time constraints when the chair asked them to. So, I think that broadly speaking, there's no reason to fear or to be concerned about providing the public an opportunity to freely address us in a structured manner, and this allows them to do that. It gives them input on items before us at committee of the whole. We don't have to have a debate. We don't have to have any response. We simply hear what they have to say and consider it when we deliberate. And I think that's wholly appropriate, and we wouldn't have invented this system. It's done in lots of places and lots of other councils across this province and beyond. So I will support the motion by Councillor Myatt. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to speak, but I am opposed to an open forum, and for a number of reasons, and I think Diane attached to some of them. I think, first of all, council communicates with staff or our community in a whole range of ways. And if you remember back when we did the visioning session, I think there was over 30 different ways that we communicate with staff. Or not staff, I'm sorry, with the public. And I think there's better ways of doing it than an open forum. I think there's far better, because I think I've sat around this table for many, many years. It takes a very special person to get up in front of to everyone and speak there. There's a vast majority of the people are very uncomfortable with that and are much better at talking to you at a particular setting somewhere else. So I think it kind of sets and what you do then is you get very good coverage from this, and it to my mind creates an unfair playing field for people that aren't comfortable there. Secondly, anything that we do here, almost all of it is our budgets are. We discuss many of these things on way before, and we're just really approving what we've approved in our budgets and long-range plans. I agree that there's probably better ways of getting input on particular issues, but I don't think the open forum was that. I've had some experience with it in other communities where it's been grossly misused, particularly in election years where there's personal attacks against people sitting around these tables that you can't reply to. And it sets up a forum that is just totally unproductive, and I can't support it for that. Finally, as we go through that election, I hear many, many times about openness and transparency. In my mind, that's a two-way street. We have never, in my mind, denied anybody that wants a delegation to speak to this person, only that you give us some information about what you're going to present. I think you give somebody the opportunity to just get up there and ambush any particular one of us is wrong, and I won't support it. And I think we'll try and deal with this amendment then. This amendment to the procedural, it's really not even to the procedural bylaw. It talks about a year trial. And I'll accept it as an amendment to the procedural bylaw, and I'll read it. That staff be directed to repeat back to council with logistical information pertaining to the offering of a 15-minute open forum prior to each committee of the whole meeting on a one-year trial basis. I'm going to ask the question on this one. All in favor? Opposed? That fails then. That's tied. So, you want to deal with the 7 o'clock one? Anybody want to speak to it? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate Councillor Myatt's points on this. I think there's something in our 7:30 start time that's very humane to a person like me, in that it gives me a chance to see my children after work. I work till 6 every day, and I couldn't be here. I will be at council whenever council is, but I just think that, and Councillor Myatt pointed it out, and it's important to be clear about it. You know, I've actually went back and looked at the length of meetings and the number of delegations we've had over many years, over the last decade, and took a look at that. And it's true that council meetings are the last 5 months are an aberration, a serious aberration. Council meetings are generally much shorter than they have been. We average 2 delegations over the last 10 years since 2006. You know. We are a new council. Everybody wants to come see us. Everybody wants to come talk to us about things. And that's great and that's good. It's taking a lot of time. The other thing that happened, it's important to note, is that because there was an election last year, staff put off a lot of things that should have or would have come to the previous council. They waited and introduced them to the new council. So we've had a lot more work and we've had a lot more delegations than are normal, and that's driven our times to be longer. I would say that we should let this play out a little longer, let it play out for another year or so, the way we're running it, and see if we continue to have this problem, you know, early next year. And if we do, I would say probably then my mind might change in terms of making some changes in terms of how we run this thing, to say, you know, we can't continue to meet until 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. That's not practical, and I appreciate that. I would say, though, let's wait on making major changes to the structure of the meetings for a few more months and see what we think early next year. And if we still think it's a major problem, well, then maybe I can get on board with some changes like this. But for the time being, I'd hate to see us make changes that make it more difficult for people with, you know, with jobs like mine or with young families to do this job. I'd like to see us make it as possible as we can to give people access to be on council or to be in the gallery during a council meeting. I think the 7:30 start time has struck that balance really well for a lot of years. And I hate to see us just sort of change it based on a few months worth of experience. So I'm going to vote against the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mike. I don't need to speak to it. Anybody want to speak to it? I think one of the things, and I think you did mention it, Mike, and I'm neither either way with it. I think the 7th, to me, I would prefer 7:30, but I think you mentioned staff, and I think if we should really hear from staff and what their input is and ask them. I think we discussed it briefly at striking, but if we're going to change it, I mean, it is going to affect staff. Their input also would be nice to know when we make that consideration. But no, I mean, if you want to deal with it, I guess we've got it here, and we can deal with it. And I don't disagree. I mean, if it continues that there were late meetings, I think we should revisit it, and don't be afraid to revisit it, say in the fall. But from my perspective, I'm happy with 7:30. So I'm going to ask the question: I'll read the motion. That council consider amending committee of the whole meetings. Commencing, committee of the whole meetings at 7 p.m. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. That's defeated. So, now, I have two here, another suggested amendments, and I'll just take the first one as it comes in order here, that amend procedural bylaw number 9 to include number 9, which is include a break in the agenda. Start with you, Vice Deputy. Well, perhaps we should start with the mover, and then we'll get you, Diane.
I'm sorry, Diane. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So maybe it's in keeping with Luke's already made his comments about the aberration, but some of the meetings were going to the point where I personally would have liked a physical break. And I thought there were opportunities to have a break. After all, the delegations had been for over an hour, that we could have had a 5 or 10 minute break. And so that was the idea behind that one. If we believe the meetings are going to take another path to some sort of normalcy, then I can withdraw that.
I just will point out one thing too, Neil. And at any time, any member can ask for a recess. So, and I think that's probably just my opinion now. I think that's probably the better way to do it, because if you build it into the structure, there's going to be meetings, I suspect, in the future that won't be very long, and you're going to be forced to take unless you ask the question to do it. So, but if any member feels the need or would, maybe that's not the right word, would like a break, by all means, just raise your hand, and we can do it as a point of order.
Mr. Mayor, if we don't get through all of the committee of the whole by 9 o'clock, I'll be asking for a break tonight. Thank you.
So, would you withdraw? Okay, here, I'll just mark it as withdrawn. So the last amendment then is amend the... Oh, did you want to speak to... Sorry, Diane, I think we disposed of it, but go ahead. Sorry.
You actually said what I would, and I have asked you sometimes, stop, I have to go to the bathroom, so you can ask that. It's okay.
Okay. Neil and Councillor Minaj and Councillor Dave Mayette, and it is to amend the procedural bylaw to include 8II and 8II. Sure, you go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity. And really, though, I would like to say something else first, and that is it's quite obvious to those of us who sit here tonight that the open forum, if we'd had a full slate of nine sitting here, it would have been passed. So I hope that we can return that piece of the procedural bylaw to a future committee of the whole meeting. And I was caught off guard, actually, with how we were going to proceed with this. Otherwise, I would have had all my motions made in advance. I apologize for that. So this particular one, the 8.3 and the 8.2, again, being new to council and not fully understanding how members of committees are brought forward, I thought there was a lost opportunity for members of council to review the list of the eligible candidates and to know what the eligible candidates' backgrounds are, and to politically make a pitch for somebody and say, this person's been doing this in the community. Should we have a look at them and make that advisory comment to the striking committee so that maybe they have more information, or maybe staff has more information. And I felt that we didn't have that opportunity, although it's very difficult to debate a list of names that appear at a committee of the whole meeting, and these are the recommended names that are now on the committees. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I would prefer somebody else and not that person. It's not a favorable method of doing business, and so I would hope for change, and I would hope that these two items would help us with change, and that's why I support this motion. Thank you.
I'll speak. There is a recommendation there was a change to the procedural bylaw where we would circulate that list prior to council members. The two that you have suggested the rubric, and I know what a rubric is, and I wonder, why do we pick a rubric just for striking committee? Then why don't we make every committee have a rubric for every committee and every council member's decision? So I think if we just, and what's suggested here was that we have a standard, some type of a standard form that includes experience, that type of thing, circulate that to all of council prior to the striking committee meeting, and then the striking committee will make the recommendation. I think Luke's going to, and we spoke to this quite at length at striking, because I know that there's a wish to have some more input to it, but be assured that there's no and Luke really mentioned it, that there's no perfect way of doing this. It's really just a judgment of what we try and do and whatever we have in our mind. And I admire, it's often difficult because sometimes we don't even get enough. Sometimes we get more people. But I think have a look at that clause. I'm not comfortable with this rubric. I don't know really how you would use it and what it means. I'll let you speak.
I think, just so I can be clear, you've asked to add back in 8.2 and 8.3. Am I right about that? Yes. Okay. So that's the rubric and presenting relevant qualifications. I think with regard to the rubric, the issue there is that it doesn't. You may think that will create a better or more acceptable result, but we've done it in the previous council. Vice Deputy Mayor Gowanlock, Mayor, and I used a rubric in appointing the members of the CLC, it was a very rote process. We didn't discuss it. We filled in a form. We submitted it to the clerk. The clerk tallied up the figures, and we appointed them down the list. And the result was we got a committee that a lot of people weren't happy with in terms of its structure, in terms of its balance. But no matter what happens, we're going to appoint, people are not necessarily going to be happy with the decision striking makes on who ought to be on these committees. And I think the very best way for us to do it is the way that we do it. You just saw the mayor and Vice Deputy Mayor and myself vote on opposite sides of an issue, which we do all of the time. We are by no means a bloc who think all the same way, right? And so when the striking operates by consensus, so when the three of us present something to you, it's something we all agree on, and that means, in my view, that it's pretty strong, and it always will be, no matter who sits in these chairs, because we all have separate mandates. We all get elected separately. We don't, we're not members of a party or anything. So I think you get the strongest result when three people can sit down, talk about, what's the best way to structure a committee to do what we want to do, to represent the community as best we can represent it, and to be flexible and give us the flexibility to do that. And I think when we do that, we get the best results. And with regard to the relevant qualifications being presented in the public recommendations, I think that there's probably some issues with that around privacy and whatnot. I think that was mentioned in the staff report. So I couldn't support that for that reason. I think people have to have their qualifications and their CVs protected and not presented in public. So I really believe in the current system, and I would like to see it stay the way that it is. With regard to the structure and supporting the change in terms of presenting the applicants to council prior to striking, considering it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, I didn't, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't want that item to get lost, because there is a change in here that basically is saying in advance of the striking committee meeting, there will be a circulation, there will be an opportunity for input. And I think that was what was desirable, and so that's been built in here. It's perhaps been missed in the discussion, but that was there. That there will be a circulation of applications, and there will be a chance for every member of council to contribute to the striking committee's meeting, which then leads to the recommendations coming back. So it's there.
Understood. So the only piece of rebuttal is that at some point, without laying out the qualifications of people to the public, this is a public committee structure. We can't be transparent and show that people with the best qualifications, not the politically best qualifications, were chosen for the positions. We can't. There are issues with it the way it is today. There's been pushback, there's been talk, there's been feedback that some members of the community were overlooked, and some members weren't fully qualified to sit on committees, and yet they've been appointed to sit on the committees. So these two items would state what the required qualifications would really be in advance, so that people would know what the expectations are, and B, would match the people in the communities, their names and their qualifications, to the positions. That's what it's all about.
I'm struggling with what you talk about qualifications, Neil, because I guess we should be doing that for council members too, because we appoint council members. Why would that be any different? What qualifications? And I don't want to get hung up on the qualifications. I think what we need to know is some basic information about their community. I don't know how you say anybody's not qualified to sit on a committee, other than if there's a legal reason, there may be. But if it's, I struggle with that a great deal, because everybody brings something different to the community, and everybody will bring something different to each committee. So, and I don't want to get hung up on that, because I understand what you're trying to do. I think it's just a play of words. I think we really just want to all be comfortable with we're going to have some people on there that are committed to doing the terms of reference of the committee, trying to meet the terms of reference in the committee. Councillor Mike Myatt.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say one of my recommendations that didn't make it in as well, my wording into the procedure bylaw was pertaining to the appointment of volunteers to our various committees, and that the striking committee brought to council. We maybe saw something on the list that we maybe might want to have had input into, so I felt that we should have had and could have an opportunity to speak to it. And I wanted to thank the striking committee for going halfway. I think it's a really good change in that we are now being permitted to take a look at the applicants that have been would be appointed to by the striking committee to the various committees. We at least now have the opportunity to take a look at what you're recommending before it comes to committee of the whole. So I want to thank you for the good work you did on that. And although it wasn't exactly what I was hoping for in terms of having a kick at the cap, perhaps in closed session before it got here, I like the change. So I'm supportive of the way it's written. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess now I want to be clear here. So this is the amendment we need to deal with, and then go back to the main motion, is adding 8.II and III. So the next 8, 2, I guess I'll call them 2 and 3, and I'll read them so everybody understands if I can find them here. Here, go ahead, Vice Deputy Mayor.
Just for confirmation and clarification, further to what Councillor Myatt said, it wouldn't just be the applications for the people that are being recommended. It's all of the applications would be available in advance of the decision coming back. So there would be a chance for you to have the kick at the can and provide feedback into the striking committee process, which then turns around and brings something back. So it's all of them. So I thought it was a good compromise too, but it's putting them all before all of you in advance of the recommendation.
And Mr. Mayor, I understand that, and I initially said before I support the way it was written, and I perhaps I didn't say it quite the way I should have said it, but I do understand it. Thank you.
Okay, so let's deal with this motion then. And so what we're voting on is one, this first one, these are both on one motion, so they'll either go forward together or they'll fail. It is that a rubric be created to assist in the selection of committee members. And secondly, that the relevant qualifications of chosen applicants be presented in the public recommendations to council. All in favor? Opposed? Needed. So now let's go back to the main motion. I'll read that recommendation. It's pretty short. That council consider passing the attached procedural bylaw, and I guess it is as amended because we. No, there's no amendments. All in favor? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So tonight the delegations, because we're not going to use deputation anymore, the delegations were 33 minutes long, and there were 3 of them. And so that's 11 minutes per. And approximately 3 to 4 members of the 9 sitting around the table asked at least one question, and we were at 11 minutes. So it's going to be very tough, and we're going to have to be very disciplined to ask one question.
It's not that you only get to ask one question. You ask one question, and then if time permits, and there would have been, because each delegation would have been 15 minutes for question, then you will go back. It's just, the intent is so that every member has an opportunity to ask a question. So you'll get one that will go around the table. If there is no questions, then you'll be, but one of the discussions, I don't want to get on this, Neil, one of the discussions we really had at Striking is when we try to codify everything, I think you need to give the chair some flexibility about how we interpret this and how we go forward. I haven't cut anybody off yet, and I really don't want to. We want everybody to do it. We're just trying to set some guidelines and some expectations so that everybody's treated fairly.
I understand, Mr. Mayor, and I was concerned that if 1 or 2 of us pontificated too much with a deputation, that you would cut it off, and 3 or 4 others would still have something very valuable to add to the dialogue.
Yeah, and now another thing I did mention, I think, I've been, as the chair, I don't think I've cut anybody off this term, and I've been really reluctant because it's new council and I want to see how you guys feel with it. But I do think that some of the deputations have really, I want to be careful with the word, certainly did not respect our procedural bylaw. And I think in the future going forward, I will start to ask those people to obey the procedural bylaw. And it won't be right on the 10 minutes. It may be some flexibility. The other thing, if there is any one of you that thinks that a deputation has gone on too long and it's been over the time, you just raise a point of order and we will deal with it. But I think we've had a number of deputations that have really taken advantage of our procedural bylaw. And I think we need to start to deal with that because 10 minutes is lots. They're here to ask a question. They're not here, in my mind, to use it as a forum. And I think it's been used way too much as a forum.
Last comment from me then, reciprocally I would ask that if something is really important and really interesting, that we could allow them to go on a little longer and we could ask more questions if we're all in favor. And would you require a point of order for that?
Like I say, again, I don't want it to be, say, it's strict in guidelines, but I'm going to try and start making delegations follow our procedural bylaw as closely as I can. If at any point that any council member thinks that I would like more information, all you need to do is raise a point of order and we can deal with it and say we would like to hear more, or we want to hear from this delegate. Comfortable with that. We had some good discussion about this. Okay, I'm going to go back to the question on the main motion then. All in favor? Opposed? If any, that's carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Environmental Services and Transportation Staff Report. It has to do with an agreement with BOSRA, Waste Collection Services, and our Director of Public Works, Stuart Doyle, will present.
Organized here. Thank you. At the last council meeting, staff was directed to enter contract negotiations with Basra for waste collection services. This direction was made based on Basra being identified as the preferred proponent from the request for proposal issued earlier this year. Staff has since worked with Basra to produce a detailed document, which is attached to the agenda this evening, that includes the specification detailed in the RFP and other conditions directly relating to the waste collection. In general, the draft document attached provides a framework for specific responsibilities and conditions that each party must follow. The following is a brief summary. I won't go through point by point, but certainly you can ask any questions at the end here. Moving on to the second page. Included in the previous staff report was an indication that 2 public works positions could be eliminated from the full-time unionized complement. This reduction would not include any layoffs or job losses for any current employees, as both positions would be eliminated through attrition. Some of the current tasks assigned to staff would be modified to reflect the change in operations. This will result in a net increase to core maintenance duties. The only change in level of service contemplated by the new contract relates to a legacy collection issue in Southampton. There are 23 specific commercial properties in Southampton that receive twice-a-week collection at the curbside. This higher level of service predates amalgamation and has not been reviewed since. It is proposed that through the conversion of the service with Basra, the town could discontinue this extra service provided to them to reduce costs and provide equity between all merchants located in both downtown cores. Several changes have taken place over the years that have reduced the need for commercial twice per week collection, restrictions, diversion programs, additional items in the blue box, bag tags, and separate collection opportunities. Upon approval of the agreement with Basra, staff will notify the affected properties immediately to provide them with sufficient time to consider the changes, and they wouldn't take effect until the start of next year. As detailed in the June 8 staff report, there will be modest cost savings associated with a shift in service delivery methods. Some additional cost savings have been included in the contract to reflect some minor changes in the scope of work.
Thanks, Stuart. Then the recommendation is that Council consider a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Bruce Area Solid Waste Recycling to provide waste collection services effective October the 1st, 2015 as defined in the attached contract, and that Public Works full-time unionized staff complement be reduced from 28 to 26 positions. Comments? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little concerned about having to vote on this tonight, but in that it's a lot of information and it's a big change. And there has been quite a bit of comment come my way. I'm not convinced yet that this is the dollar cost savings is there. There's probably some other good savings to consider, but you know, the numbers were so close to what our current service costs, and then you know already you see you know the reduction of one collection in Southampton, which that little couple $1,000s worth of difference, I can just see that gone. So the cost differential is not there anymore for me. So I'm not convinced yet that we've received enough information to get at the value of the reallocation of labor, because when I see that reallocation of labor that's potential, which sounds like a good thing, some of what that labor would then be able to do is going to cost us money. So I just see this as an escalating cost, which I just haven't had enough information. It also concerns me that we purchased a new packer in 2013. That's less than 2 years, and now we're potentially deeming it to be surplus, and the pricing of that just is a concern to me. I see in something it showed up that leaf pickup would become a potential thing again. People have gotten used to going out to the compost. It's a bit of a party atmosphere out there on some days. So, I don't know about that. And the $40,000, well, quite frankly, we were doing leaf pickup on some days with the garbage packer because of the volume. But if we no longer have a garbage packer, I'm just not too sure. And it worries me about losing student jobs. I actually have had some interesting conversations with the kids on the back of the garbage truck past my house. I'm not at all concerned, by the way, about the reduction in commercial stuff in Southampton. That should have happened a long time ago. So to bring that in line. But I guess I still have a lot of questions. And the contract, being a former proofreader for publications, there's a lot of places in it where the word of is in there instead of or. And so I just, somebody's got to go through that with a fine-tooth comb because it is a legal document. And I just didn't have the chance to mark one up yet. And some of them are it's just typos. But in some cases, there's a significant change when you one letter difference in a word. So I'm rolling along, I think, towards thinking that this has value for us, but I don't think that personally I have enough information yet about how the labor would be reallocated to make this a compelling decision in that direction for me, because the cost saving doesn't seem to be there yet for me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do you want to address any of that, Stuart? Or
certainly, there's no specific questions at hand. I do understand where you're going with the labor. I tried to explain it with the last report, and perhaps not successfully. That the issue, what we're running into now, is that we're running more specialized jobs that we can't seem to address with the amount of labor we have, and we're putting 4 to 5 guys on a garbage packer a day. And the idea would be to repurpose those hours into core maintenance activities rather than driving a packer truck around. Now, both good jobs, both good employment opportunities. However, our core services, we're running into more work with our vac truck, which takes 2 people every day. We're running into more tree issues, which we can't seem to staff with 3 guys, or folks, sorry. And it's becoming difficult, but again, if there's more information required, I can certainly provide that.
Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not concerned with the repurposing of 2 of the 4 staff. What I would like to know and see more detail on is the -2 positions, the 28 to 26 positions. I believe Kate Allen, the Director of Finance, at some point said that these dollar values as they transfer. So let's hypothetically say 2 employees were valued at $100,000 per annum. So repurposing to other departments is only half of the solution. The other half of the solution is to understand where the $100,000 savings has come. We get public comment to us all the time saying, what did amalgamation do for us? How did we save any money? When we contract out a service, I buy the initial dollar values, and I'm impressed with the report, and I'm in support of it. But I want to see the Director of Finance with a supplemental report say, not only do you get what the Director of Public Works is saying, but you get this amount of savings going forward, and we lock it in, and we don't let it just disappear into the big sphere of finance and the operation. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important to note, and the Director of Public Works made it fairly clear in his last presentation on this on the 8th of June, that there is no great savings. The cost, the Basra number was $290,000, as I remember, and we're running only just slightly more expensive than that. And when you factor in the costs that have to be reallocated across the corporation from our current waste management budget, administration costs for one, and obviously a certain portion of our overall administration costs are being borne right now by our internal waste management program, which would not be the case if we were to contract it out. So the whole thing financially, at least in the year 2016, is a bit of a wash. For us, maybe even a little less than a wash, possibly, depending on how you look at the numbers. But that, there's a lot of other things to consider. There's a potential long-term savings. You reduce the overall number of full-time employees. You'll reduce over the long-term benefit obligations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there's also what the director has said to us tonight, and it has to be reiterated, I think, is that there's a whole sort of change happening in what our Public Works Department does and how it does it. And we are recalibrating our Public Works Department from being guys who pick up garbage and that kind of thing, the things that maybe we've been doing for the last 30 years, and hiring specialized individuals, people who are very skilled in certain areas to do certain things for us because we require very skilled work to be done, things that so that we can comply with the avalanche of regulation that we face on an ongoing basis from our friends at Queen's Park. And we need those people. We need them on the ground doing the things that we have to do, like inspecting signs, like inspecting sidewalks, like inspecting parking lots. These are skilled jobs that require particular skills, and we bear tremendous liability in those areas, as you're all well aware. And we need to keep up that work, and we need to make sure it's well done. We need guys in the winter driving up and down the roads, making sure our snow clearing is up to the standard, the minimum maintenance standard that we are required by law to have in place. We need high-skilled public works people on the ground doing the things we need them to do. And so in areas where we can contract services out and do it with no impact to our permanent staff, as the proposal from the director has done, I think we should be doing that. We should be contracting out the stuff that we can contract out and focusing our department on the difficult work that we need them to be doing. And this accomplishes that in a pretty elegant way through attrition and the timing works so that it doesn't impact our seasonal employees either. And I will support the motion, and I think it will build a stronger public works department down the road. And so I encourage council to not only look at the financial aspect, but also the operational aspect of the proposal. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I think we've had some good discussion on this and are ready for the question. All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? That carries. So the next item on the agenda then is, if I just get back up here, it's Environmental Services and Transportation Staff reported amended to amend Traffic Bylaw 103-2008, Eugenie Waterloo Streets. And again, our Director of Public Works will present.
Again, so at the previous council meeting in April, staff requested council to consider amending the traffic bylaw to install a non-standard all-way stop at Catherine and Stafford. At this meeting, council directed staff to review alternative options to provide improved vehicular and pedestrian interaction in the area of Saugeen Central School. So in response, staff have reviewed a variety of options. I think I've got listed 1 to 8 here in no particular order. Read through those. After review, staff is recommending option 8 as a preferred approach to provide improved interaction in this area. As part of the Town of Saugeen Shores capital program, Eugenie Street will have been improved to urban standards from Brickard to Waterloo Street by the end of 2015. And a new sidewalk has been installed from Waterloo to Stafford also as part of that project. These upgrades provide pedestrians with wider accessible infrastructure. Direct access to the school is also a factor in the review. The extension of Eugenie Street into school property represents the most direct access to the student entrance. The modified route will include one less road crossing than the current Catherine Street access. Some minor modifications will be required at the intersection of Eugene and Stratford, however they are planned nonetheless. The installation of all-way stop at Waterloo and Eugene would provide a much-needed controlled exit for vehicles coming from the west side of Waterloo Street. Eugene is the first northerly access to Goddard Street from the westerly subdivision lands. The location is very close to the midpoint between Waterloo Street and Green Street, which is the two nearest controlled intersections. Staff have completed a warrant analysis of the intersection using OTM traffic manual. Based on the prescribed warrants included in the manuals, this intersection meets the criteria. In 2016, pending budget deliberations, staff are planning to replace or upgrade the current pedestrian crossing at Catherine and Goddard. At that time, a review will be undertaken to determine the ideal location for the crossing. If an all-way stop is installed, staff will undertake a warrant analysis once school returns in the fall to determine if a crossing guard would be warranted at Eugene and Waterloo. Staff has consulted with Saugeen Central School, with the principal, police services, the crossing guard at Ralph's, and also the local traffic engineer in this design, all in favor of the changes as outlined in option 8. If implemented, staff would undertake an education process, and we have been working, before school ended, with the principal to work on emails and direct letters out to the parents with this. and this process would include mail-out signage and use of the crossing guard to direct pedestrians. In order to implement the changes, the traffic bylaw needs to be amended to include Eugene and Waterloo Street.
Thanks, Stuart. And the recommendation is that Council considers an amendment to traffic bylaw 103-2008 to implement an all-way stop at Eugenie and Waterloo Streets. Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I did try to push around an email for review prior to the meeting, and I know that Stuart has seen it. And I think there's some wins here, some extra wins in the proposal. And one of them would be to reduce the 4 lanes from Catherine to Eugenie back to 2 lanes and provide us with additional parking on both sides of the street. Some extra parking would be a good thing, and that would push the right turn that exists now. There's a right turn right in the middle of the crosswalk at right turn lane, which causes trouble all the time at the intersection of Catherine and Highway 21. So the ability to have the crosswalk placed on the north side of the intersection and at Eugenie instead of the south side of the intersection at Catherine is another bonus to the plan. So I wonder, and I asked the question, if we could go to a full stoplight system on Highway 21 for the kids crossing, and then we wouldn't have to have the crossing guard there, and we could move the crossing guard back to Waterloo at the 4-way stop. My only problem with the whole plan is that spilling the children onto Eugenie Street in an easterly direction from Highway 21, there are no sidewalks on Eugenie Street, and there are no sidewalks on Bricker Street for the block between Eugenie and Catherine. So those things may need to be looked at as well.
Well, I think that's not what we're really considering. I mean, that's part of the problem, or part of the issue, but I think this is really just the first step in all of those things perhaps you're suggesting, Neil. So really what we're being asked is, for tonight, is an all-way stop at Eugenie and Waterloo. Stuart?
Sorry, just to clarify, though, there will be sidewalks on Eugenie from Goddard's to Bricker by the end of the year. That section of road will be rebuilt this year. No, we are preparing Bricker for a urban upgrade. However, that is not in the budget.
I think this is just really the first step, and all of your thoughts, keep them. We'll get to them as we move forward with this. I think Stuart's really done a lot of work on this, and I appreciate that, Stuart. So, Councillor Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one quick question through you, Mr. Mayor. So they won't be letting kids go towards Catherine and Street from the school any longer. They'll be forced to go the other way. Is that how it's going to work?
Well, we can do our best efforts, which will include signage, some education through the parents, through the school. Also, we were going to propose to have one of our staff there for the first few days of school to direct people down the highway towards Eugenie. However, kids will be kids and will certainly walk on the path of least resistance sometimes, or wherever they're told not to go. So we will certainly do our best to promote that corridor. However, we can't force anybody down a certain road one way or another.
Okay, all in favor there? Sorry, Vice Deputy Mayor Hubert.
I just wanted to ask a question. Waterloo was being set up as one of the throughways through town. This makes perfect sense. It's a good idea. How many stops are there now on Waterloo? 3. Okay. Well, this one makes sense, but we were trying to establish the alternate to the highway, and we're doing a good job at curtailing that, but this makes good sense.
Okay. All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any? That is carried. The next item on the agenda, again, is an Environmental Services and Transportation staff report. It has to do with capital projects on Shantz and Bricker Street water main, and again, our Director of Public Works, Stuart Doyle, will present.
As previously reported, we brought these projects to council a few weeks ago requesting the budget amendment. So we did tender, and for the following is the results. So project 1 was Shant Street Water Main Green to Gustavus. The water main replacement includes replacement of the water main end services and minor storm upgrades. We had 3 prices on that project as follows. Project 2 is Bricker Street reconstruction, Davy Drive to Robin Road. That includes replacement of water main and services, stormwater improvements, new curb road and subgrade, extension of the sidewalk from Drummond Drive to the trail connection Ashwell Crescent. And we received two tenders on that, and both fall within the budget allocation that was previously discussed.
Thanks, Stuart. The recommendation is that Ackert Construction Limited be awarded the contract for the Shant Street Water Main Replacement Project, tender number 2015-6430, 5530, in the amount of $55,952.22 plus applicable HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary tender documents. And 2, that Doug Wells Construction be awarded the contract for Bricker Street Reconstruction Project, tender number 2015-6430, 5540, in the amount of $342,275.89 plus applicable HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary tender documents. Comments? Questions? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. So, 5 minutes? Be back here. Sure. Are you serious? Sure. So we will reconvene this committee of the whole meeting, and the next item on the agenda is a planning and development staff report. It has to do with the road name change, and our manager of development services and CBO, Bart Toby, will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The owner of 559 Harbor Street has requested the town consider changing the name of Iser Street to Harbor Street. On numerous occasions, through services, utilities, and other people were not able to locate this property. The similarities and immediate proximity of Iser Street and Iser Road caused confusion for people trying to find this property. As people move from the main beach area, most users of Iser Street simply believe they are on a portion of Harbor Street as it curves towards Iser Road. Furthermore, the municipality's 911 emergency response system requires clear addressing to efficiently determine the property's location. Continuing with the current situation is not recommended. In order to approximately identify the lands on the section of road, as shown on the attached map, staff recommend that Iser Street be renamed to Harbor Street. Furthermore, in order to continue being able to enforce the traffic bylaw, staff recommend that traffic bylaw be amended to reference the location of the stop sign at the intersection of Harbor Street and Iser Road. If approved, the property will be assigned a new 911 number to be associated with Harbor Street. Town staff will remove any signage referred to Iser Street. Signage to indicate Harbor Street at the intersection of Iser Road will be installed.
Thank you, Bart. Then the recommendation is that council consider passing a bylaw to change the name of Iser Street to Harbor Street, and further that council consider amending the traffic bylaw to reference the location of the stop sign at the intersection of Harbor Street and Iser Road. Comments? Councillor Mike Matt.
Mr. Mayor, it's really a logistics thing, but I'm just wondering through you to Bart. Bart, the 560 address on Iser Street, my question is, why would we not want to do both at the same time? And has the resident at 560 been contacted, or just due to the fact that we only received the request from the one resident, we just left it at that? But has there been any communication with the resident at 560? I see there's only 2 in the block, correct? So that was my question, Mr. Mayor.
Stuart?
560 is actually already a Iser Road address.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any? That's carried. The next item on the agenda is a planning and development staff report. It has to do with the site plan for Mac's Convenience Store, and again, our manager of development services and CBO will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Double B Limited Partnership is its general partner. 2246215 Ontario Inc. owns the land located at the southwest intersection of Ivings Drive and Goddard Street, Highway 21, at 166 and 176 Goddard Street. The land is currently vacant and was previously occupied Kentucky Fried Chicken and a car wash. The owner is proposing to construct a 329.7 meter square convenience store with a 10 gas pumps under a canopy. The owner will transfer to the town a site visibility triangle at the intersection of Ivings and Goddard, and the developer will receive a committee of adjustment approval. The developer has received a committee of adjustment approval for a reduced amount of landscape open space from 30% to 26.55%. In return, the reduced landscaping component the town has required capital contribution in the amount of $4,800 for improving the landscaping streetscaping in this area. The town also requires the developer to plant more mature trees at the time of planting and ensure the landscaping is consistent with the surrounding improved sites. The owner is posting securities to ensure completion of site improvements. It is recommended that the town proceed with completing the site plan agreement once the developer has paid the capital contribution, deposits, and necessary securities associated with the agreement and executing the agreement.
Thank you, Bert. Bart, the recommendation is that council consider a bylaw to authorize a site plan agreement with Double B Limited Partnership by its general partner 2246215 Ontario Inc. for a new convenience store and gas bar. Questions or comments? All in favor of the recommendation?
I just need to fully understand and the expectations. We just went through a site plan agreement with the Home Hardware property and reduced their entrance. So north and south traffic on the 4 lanes are able to enter into the Home Hardware property. This site plan agreement will restrict entrance to the Max development from north driving 2 lanes of traffic. Because of this island configuration, the island has curvature on it that is going to allow south driving cars to enter and south driving cars to exit. To go from the north into the gas bar, you will have to make a left turn on Ivings Drive, pull around the island toward near the LCBO, and pull a left into the back driveway of the Max convenience store. So I guess that my question will be twofold. One is this necessary because of the stoplight? Is it proven with the Highway Traffic Act that we would have a problem there? And secondly, to the best of my knowledge, we only ever had one curved entrance, and that was into the giant Taiga Plaza in the past. And 25 years ago, it was a huge source of contention in the municipality of Port Elgin about how people could turn left off of the north, going north, and so it was realigned to allow people to go left from the north driving traffic, as it was originally designed as a south driving entrance only. So we've already been this route in the past, and I would like clarification for it now. Thank you.
Stuart?
So 2 things to note on that. Because this intersection, or the entrance to this development, is so close to the intersection of Ivings Drive, we generally try to keep them further away. Working with the developer and their engineer on this, their site layout worked better with the building at the back, so to compromise, we moved the entrance ahead, but had a kind of a passive system. As you note, it is mountable curb with rumble strips, so it's not a barrier curb. We have something similar at the exit to Independent, at the just near the gas bar. It is not permissive. It is a barrier curb in that approach. In the future, with upgrades on this intersection, there is a good chance there might be an island out there that would restrict it even further. So looking ahead, that was kind of the idea. I do realize to get in from it for a northbound, you would have to go out of Ivings, which I think is also okay because it is a controlled intersection there. So that's why we went that route, specifically though to keep the turning movements to a minimal, crossing 2 lanes of traffic near the intersection.
Thank you, Stuart.
One quick follow-up then.
Okay.
Could we entertain an advanced green left turn at Ivings Drive?
Certainly that could be done. We'd have to work through the MTO and a PHM 125 approval drawing and get some capital funds to upgrade the controller. I don't know if we have enough phases on that, but we could be done.
Okay. I again ask the question again. All in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is a Community Services, Parks and Recreation staff report, and it's a request to lease space for airport hangars. And our Director of Community Services, Jane Jagielowski, will present.
Thank you. Yes, what I'm looking for this evening is approval to provide land for pilots to construct hangars for their own personal aircraft at the Port Elgin Airport. Staff's been working closely with the advisory committee to develop an agreement and has actually been working on it for several years. Council supported the concept, the previous council did, as it will increase the value of the airport and provide a safe storage for airplanes, which may reduce vandalism, provide a tidy site, and an opportunity to generate revenue. At the time, there was some concern in regards to the price per square footage, which was 25 cents per square foot, and we've been looking at some other airports for comparison purposes and feel that it is relatively in good keeping with some of those. We do not provide, obviously, an asphalt tarmac, and obviously we don't have 12-month services at the airport. So therefore, the Port Elgin Airport is not available during the winter months. In accordance with the committee recommendations, staff is now seeking approval in principle for this practice from council and consent to negotiate the particulars of having airport hangars located at the Port Elgin Airport. The precedence lease document takes into consideration multiple components to ensure the appropriate use of the lands, and I've listed those in the report. The Airport Advisory Committee is confident that the development of hangars will assist in the sustainability of the airport, and it will be an added attraction to its overall image. And the future revenue source for an airport reserve fund will be identified.
Thank you, Jane. And the recommendation is that Council endorses the airport hangar agreement as a precedent lease for use by staff for discussions with future pilots wishing to erect a hangar at the Port Elgin Airport, and further that the revenues from future agreements be allocated to the Airport Reserve Fund. Start here and then we get down there. Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some concerns about this. I'm finding it a little difficult to understand the 25 cents per square foot in comparison to the other rental rates we charge for the use of a tourist campsite or a slip at the beach. So, because I really don't know what the average size of a hangar would be, and so what that would translate into in terms of an actual dollar amount. I also am curious to know, is this hangar then considered a seasonal slip, let's say, during the season, or is this 12-month-a-year storage? So how does that fit into all of this? The reason why I ask these questions is that there is a perception that people with planes get a better break than people with boats, and it's a municipal harbor facility, but the municipality is not running the airport, but it's our land. So in the absence of some dollar figures and some comments concerning how long does somebody actually get to leave their plane there? Is it 12 months a year? Because if it is, then we're talking about a dollar figure that should be perhaps not completely the same, but at least comparable to the boat situation with the slip plus storage on the shore. So could you suggest to me what sort of a standard space requirement would be for a hangar, and how does that translate into dollars for the season?
A standard hangar would be about 30 by 40 feet. It's about 1,200 square feet, so it equates to about $300 a year. As far as your question, is it seasonal? Yes, it's seasonal. We would not be providing approval for access to the hangars themselves, so it would only be accessible when the airport is open.
Then as a follow-up, I would not be supportive of this $300 for somebody to be having their plane there when there's not comparable revenues related to tie downs. It just seems to me like we're giving the planes an unfair advantage over the other kinds of rental situations we have with municipal property. I am curious to know, though, when you say it's seasonal, just because the road's not plowed out there, are we letting, is the implied thing that their plane can stay there all winter, though?
Their plane would be able to be stored in the hangar over the course of the winter.
Dave Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I had a question also, because I'm new to this airport committee, and I went to my first meeting, which was a pleasurable experience last 2 weeks ago. And what I learned there was that there was actually what appears to be a shelved long-range plan to, in fact, relocate the hangar, or the terminal building, to the concession 4-5 end of the runway. And this was something that was on the books for decades ago, and it's kind of gone by the way. But putting permanent hangars, presumably permanent, would effectively negate that from ever happening. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe you're referencing a 1992 report. I believe it is of the airport. So you are correct. Based on the usage of the airport right now, there's no future plans to relocate the offices that currently exist out there. So you are right. If the hangars are established in that area, the discussions on moving that building is certainly non-existent.
Right, because what I also learned was that one of the primary reasons that you would want to relocate the terminal building to the other end of the airport is because we don't have, we don't own that road that goes through the trailer park into so we do that at the whim of the owner of the trailer park. And should that trailer park owner or perhaps a new owner come along and say, I don't want these airport people driving through my property anymore, then we're kind of, we've dug ourselves into more of a hole. Is that not true? Like we put up more buildings that would have to be potentially relocated?
Over the last number of years, we've had no issues with the entrance to the airport. The advisory committee has no desire at this point to move the current office. It meets their needs. Future growth of the airport itself is questionable. It's certainly sustainable, but obviously you're looking at some large capital expenditures, and right now what their capital expenditures are, the gas tanks, as you would have heard at the last meeting and will be in the minutes, and sustaining it in its current condition. So I think, speaking on behalf of the advisory committee, they have no discussions on relocating that. It's meeting their needs. They built a deck on last year, which is fully accessible, and they're looking at having accessible washrooms as well. So they intend to be there for a long time.
Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ask Jane then to clarify that this is similar to and in keeping with the station or the Harbour Light restaurant. It's about the space underneath that they're paying the municipality to lease. They're going to build the hangars with their own money, all of their own money. So we're just giving them a piece of land, and we're charging them $300 for the piece of land.
Correct. They will construct them, and we are providing the land for them.
Okay, Councillor Rich.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be supporting the motion because I think that it's imperative that if we have land that we can make some income off of, I think that we should take advantage of that. I don't know if you say that that's a comparable rate, then I have to say it is. It seems inexpensive though, but nevertheless, it's inexpensive. $300 a year to store something. Would we be allowing them to store just planes there or anything else?
The agreement allows for them to store other objects there over the course of the winter if required. Again, they will not have access to the hangar. It is limited to when they can access. Our comparables that we have are based on airports in the vicinity that do have access and snow removal. You're not all actually comparing apples to apples.
No further questions, then we'll call the questions. All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? That carries. So that's the end of the formal part of our agenda. There's communications petitions for committee of the whole information. There's a number of items there for you. Some minutes. Next, then down to report on department heads. We have an information report on the River Road update. Maybe Stuart, you want to speak briefly to it? No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We did have a meeting out there with, I think, three people that live on the River Road. And the next is the municipal legislation. That legislation is out, and there's some significant changes proposed in how municipal elections are likely to occur in the future. And I think each of you, if you have the opportunity to read that proposed legislation, might want to look at it and make your comments known to the ministry, because it is making a complicated process now, in my mind, much more complicated and very hard to, some of the things they're proposing. So individually you can each comment to that and make your feelings known to the ministry as they proceed. That's the end of the agenda then. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Move. David? All in favor? We're adjourned.